Thank you everybody for coming tonight. We have a really, really special opportunity to hear from a great speaker tonight. I just want to quickly ask people to turn off their cell phones or silence them. We have Maxine Weisenfeld, the sister of SDT. She's a freshman here at UMass, and she's going to introduce her grandmother who's going to speak to us tonight.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. My name is Maxine Weisenfeld. I currently sit on the UMass Hillel Hasidut e-board. I'm an ambassador for SAPI and a sister of Sigma Delta Tau. To see so many people come here to hear my grandmother speak is truly amazing. We are the last generation that will get the opportunity to hear from a Holocaust survivor to tell their first-hand stories of survival. It is extremely important that we make sure these stories live on and are never forgotten. Growing up, I spent many Saturday afternoons hearing my grandparents' stories, and I am so glad that now you will too. Before I introduce my grandmother, there are a few people I want to thank. Firstly, I would like to thank Rabbi Eisen and Lior Shalev and UMass Hillel for making this event a reality and for the countless hours you put in. I would also like to thank both the Penn Millennium Council and the Interfraternity Council for supporting this event and making it a part of Greek Week. The fact that this event is part of Greek Week speaks so much for the values represented by the Greek community on this campus, and I'm so proud to be part of it. Thank you to all those who came to set up. We could not have had this event without you. I would also like to give a huge thank you to my mother, who drove my grandma here today, and a big welcome to my other grandma, Rivka, who is also a Holocaust survivor and came here to be with us today. Today's event is co-sponsored by the Institute for Holocaust and Genocide Studies. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Ms. Natalie Blaze from the Chancellor's Office. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce you my grandmother, Chana Pfeifen.
First, thanks for having me. And it's a little hard at the beginning till I get familiar with it. I was born in Romania. It was once Austria-Romania, Austria-Hungary, then Romania, then Russia, and 41 the Nazis invaded. That was the worst time. It was on a Shabbat. We ate Shabbat dinner, and all of a sudden the natives came in. Am I too loud?
No.
They came in with tools from the field, and they said, please get, not please, but get up. You're coming along with us. We had no idea where they're taking us. They took us to the courthouse, and the Germans came in, and all the books from the courthouse, they put in the middle of the room, men and children separate, and the husbands separate, the fathers. And this Nazi comes in and he said, put all the books in the middle and put on fire and burn them. My mother had the guts. She walked over to this German and she said, whatever happens to my children, one day might happen to you. He slapped them over the face and he walked out. In the interim, the Ukrainian, the natives, they took upon themselves, they did what they understood to them with the Jewish people. They took all the men out, and last that we know, they disrobed them. They took them on a hill, and there they took the tools from the field and they chopped them off, the heads, all the parts of the body. We only found out after the war what happened. We had no idea. They never came back. All the men were taken. But my father, we all lie down on him, children and women and he survived. They came in and they said in Ukrainian, "Jak spet, na spet." When he sleeps, let him sleep. It's untrue. We know who he is. Only God performed a miracle. And then after a few days, no food, no drinking, they took us on a march. We had no idea where. You cannot take belongings, nothing, only what you're wearing, the Shabbat clothes, and we are taking you somewhere. We children, of course, didn't realize where, what, but I understand our parents knew where they're heading. And the gendarmes in cahoots with the Romanian gendarmes, they were the helpers from the Nazis. They promised not to invade Romania if they helped them with the solution of the Jewish people. And so we proceeded. We had no idea where. As we were walking, of course the children walked slower than grown-ups. Next to me was a lady that was born, something was wrong with her leg. She was born like that. And she was behind us, behind the children. And the gendarme didn't like the idea. He just grabbed a hold of her, shot her in the woods because we went through forest a lot. We headed to Bessarabia, which is now Moldavia. That was the first taste of our misery. They put us in a room. The Jewish people were gone by then. They poisoned the water, no food, and many, many people started to die. From there, a few days later, they escorted us on a hill, the river where we had to cross to Ukraine. It was called Ataki, on a hill where you couldn't take out the shoes, yellow mud, and of course, plenty of shoes were left behind. It's the fall, it's raining, brutally cold. They kept us overnight there, we were soaked and wet. And then they put us on a barge from cows and horses that they took over the river to the Ukraine. So they pushed us all in. There they grabbed my sister, which was 4, and myself 8, and my mother was behind. And hundreds of them fell from the bar because it was all with rope, heavy rope, and they all drowned. Whoever was in the middle saved their lives. My father stays with both of us, and we have no idea where my mother is, and yet she's pregnant. And I yell, "Mama, Mama," and finally she waves. She's behind us, close to being thrown in the river. But God was good, and few hundred of us did escape the misery. We came on the other side, and people were already lying there on the ground, half dead. And they forced us to walk over them, over the bodies. You could see their eyes still open. As I recall, one lady with a beret talking to God. But we can help, we are forced to go over them. And so the bodies were laying already half dead. Who cared for them? The Jewish people. They want to get rid of them. It's Hitler's mission. One thing I'm wondering, right in the middle, how come one of the German soldiers didn't desert and tell the stories what happened to us? How come? Were they all sadists? The soldiers, the Germans themselves? Okay, he was the leader. He inspired them, Hitler. But how about all the others that went to the military? Couldn't one desert and tell the world what's happening to us? Maybe some of us would have been, some of the survivors would have been saved. 6 million Jews among 1.5 million children, among them a brother of mine. How sad. What happened to humanity? And now after 70 years, it seems that everything comes back. There's a turmoil in our world. What's going on? You're going to be our leaders. Work hard and see to it that we should live in a better world and not the world that we lived. Believe me, Nobody should have the experience of us survivors. Whether they were in the ghetto or they were in Russia, as the other body, you have no idea. It all comes back now in the old age, and you have to relive it again. And it's our duty to tell the story, and the others should tell our stories. It's very important for you students to learn. Well, in any case, I'll go back. We went to the villages. We were how can I say? We were just sent to various villages there on the fields. And for 3.5 years, no food, beatings, torture, the cold stopped freezing. But I found a way. I spoke Ukrainian, so I learned the Christmas carol. And once a year, I'll take my sister, cover the Star of Davis in front and in the back, and go sing the Christmas carol. And we'll get a piece of bread, a peel from a potato. They didn't have themselves. Those Russian Ukrainians were very good people. Very good. They actually saved our lives a little bit. Some of us, of course. Most of us died from hunger and diseases. My mom was pregnant 2 months. Every morning we'll have an appel to dance. It means that we had to be present, and they had to count how many of us are still alive. So they lined us up, and many already died, but they're on the way of dying from hunger and disease, typhus, and you name it. At that moment, one spotted my mom pregnant. Well, she was already in the 7th month. He said another Jew wouldn't be born. He hit her over the belly. She gave birth to a twin. I retrieved my sister, but she's safe for the rest of her life. She lives in Israel. The boy was left behind. And you weren't allowed to cry and make a motion. And each and every morning, 40 below zero, 30, no clothes. The clothes were stored. 3.5 years. How long can it last? The people were kind, the Ukrainian. They gave us some schmackes to wear. I know, I hope you know what I mean by that. Rags, whatever. Just to cover. They had pity on the children. And then we were very sick on typhus. And they pickled some cucumbers. And so they brought the juice, nobody should see. And we drank that juice because the temperature was very high. And thank God we survived, my sister and I. Like I said, they were the opposite from the Ukrainian where I was born. They just waited for the moment to do something to the Jews. And yet, they worked with the Jews. There was harmony until 1941. We lived together. They went to church. We went to synagogues. And all of a sudden, so much hatred. And I'm questioning myself, why? Why? I wish somebody should give me an answer. Why not live in peace? Respect one another religion. Why? Wouldn't it be better for each of us to enjoy life? Why doing it? I still can't grasp it, even though it happened to me. I just can't. I can't figure it out. I mean, how could people be like that? To see young children suffering, what did we do to anybody? Why choosing that? He wanted to wipe out the Jewish race, Hitler, and everybody participated with him. But he didn't know that our end will come to that, and we will rejoice, the one that survived. But we have to tell our stories. I had an uncle, my mother's brother. He was blonde and blue eyes, very handsome. He was newly married. The Russians took him in 1941. Then the Germans caught him while he fought the Germans. And he said, I want to see my family. He didn't know where we are, and his wife. She wasn't with us, a beautiful woman. And she had 13 people with her. And he said to him, he spoke German, by the way, because there was Austria-Hungary ones. So we spoke Ukrainian, German, and Romanian, because all of them took part in that country. So the German said to him, you want to see your family? Oh, we'll bring you, we'll take you, bring you. He didn't know where she is, where we are. They knew exactly the list and the names of the Jews where they are scattered. They took him to his family, all right? Mogilov was called that city in the Ukraine, where we crossed the river. Beautiful city. There were some survivors too, but we were in villages. And he took him there, and he said, here is your family. And he said, yes, take your family, come to the train, and we'll take you home when you were born. Okay, they go on the cattle train, what does he know? And they take 13 people, among them many survivors, straight to Auschwitz. They were all guests, the 13. He was experimented by Mengele, the notorious doctor. He's decided that he's a Mishling, he's a mixed race, and they have to make experiments on him. Partly they castrated him, then the arm was removed, then the eyes were taken out, until they threw the rest of the body and the chimney there, where the family of his wife went. It's hard to talk about it. It's so sad. What happened to our people? It is impossible to describe, children. I have no words. I was a witness to that, but it's so hard to talk about it. You have no idea. My aunt, my father's sister, the Ukrainian chapter of the head, are like this. The Ukrainian that we lived with them in harmony. They were glad. She was a young woman, pregnant, just married. They had a farm. And these people worked there. And they were so good, my grandma, my aunt, to these people. They worked with them and they made a wonderful living. They had a farm. We were in the city, but my grandma and my aunt lived on a farm. And all of a sudden, they brought her hat to the courtroom where they gathered us all. You can imagine the feeling that they thought about it. To see her hat. I don't know how we still live, how we still think about it, how we see these pictures in front of us. It is unbelievable. Well, since I have not too much time to talk here, I want to proceed. Well, the 3.5 years were horrifying. We were in torture all the time. One day, the Ukrainian, the Russian said to me, you know what, Hanachka, they call me Hanachka. Let's go to the forest and we get some mushrooms, poisons, whatever. You'll cover the Star of David and back in the front. You'll put on a kerchief. You speak fluent Ukrainian. Come. I come there, but we had to cross the main road where the Germans were traveling on that particular road. And I'm so happy I'm with them. Finally, I came out of my mess there. And all of a sudden, a motorcycle is approaching the SS, and one guy pointed at us. He said, there are Jews in the forest. We were 5 of us. And he looks at them, he said, they're not Jewish, but you see, she's Jewish. But yet I covered, I speak Ukrainian. So he put the dog, the spear one, the one that smells you, you know. And he bit me, and I fell to the ground. I figured, what have I got to lose? I'll play dead. And he sent them home, and I was left behind. Their intention was more than the dog should bite me, I presume. But God was good to me. A convoy came from Vinica, which was the main post of the Nazis, the headquarters of the Nazis. They crossed the main road. And so a convoy came along, and he was too busy with that convoy. And I played that anyhow. So he left. I was left there overnight. 5 o'clock in the morning, I hear Hanachka, Hanachka, but I wouldn't answer because maybe one of the Germans is there. I didn't recognize the voice then. I was in fear there all night with animals, bears and you name it. What do I know? She comes, she said, Hanachka, it's Maria. Maria, I wouldn't answer. She touches my wrist. She said, she's alive. Idiot. She's alive. At that moment, I recognized her voice. They picked me up. I was full of blood. I was bleeding from that big bite. They put some green leaves on that wound. It healed. You'd be surprised. It was still, the blood was gushing, but at the long run, it healed. The wound was healing. They brought me back to my mom. My father was taken away, by the way, to work, to build a bridge near Kyiv. So we didn't know he's alive, but he did show up after that. But it was experimented. They gave him injections, and he got elephantitis when he started to grow big. His heart grew very big, and he survived, but he was very ill in homes and in hospitals. And they couldn't help too much with that. Once experiments are done, you are a lost person. My mom also survived, but she came back. When we came back, that was in 45. After that, being in hunger and threatened and beaten and you name it, the Russians actually saved us. First the partisans showed up, then the Russians came, and the Germans were in our bunker. And he said, they're Jews to us. We didn't answer. We spoke Ukrainian. We made believe you're not Jews. But it's suspicious. And so the partisan threw a grenade towards the window, little window. And at that moment, he got up, that Nazi, and he started to run. Just a couple of hours later, the Russians came in. When we seen the Russians, and they seen us, we were full of lies. Matter of fact, it was like a piecework. We counted how many lies we killed, excuse me, but that's the truth. My sister and I, we had nothing to do, no food, so we counted the lies. They were crawling mad from hunger, from, it was terrible. All right, now we are on the way back home. We come back home to our shtetl. A shtetl is a little city. But there were 4,000 Jews, and we were just a couple of survivors on the finger counter. We found one house, still intact. We decided we'll stay there, and maybe somebody will try to make a living there. It's after the war, how will we survive? All of a sudden, they were left over from the Germans, in cahoots with the Ukrainian, and they sent us a letter beneath the door, and the letter stated, if you Židé Parsheva, which means you ugly Jews, if you don't leave that town, you're going to be killed overnight. So one of these survivors got up, and there was a Russian tent, because the Russians were there in 45, they were there. He took us to the tent. He didn't have clothes, he didn't have belongings. He took us to the tent to another city, only to have the same thing. They were called Banderovцы. They were in cahoots with Germans left over and with the Ukrainian. They still worked on it. They didn't want the Jews back. They were really unbelievable. So, after we We went to the other city and we were trying to make a living. All of a sudden, Stalin gives an order and he said, the Jewish people, I have a country for them. Let them go to Siberia, Berezizhan, it's called the city, and we'll create for them a homeland, so to speak. But we didn't want that. Oh no, we knew there was the Gulag, that renowned Gulag, that the prison there, that he tortured the famous people like scientists and doctors, Stalin. So we decided, no, we have to do something about it. We made false papers and we headed to Romania, okay? We headed to Romania and there again, where should we go? There is a Jewish song, where shall I go? How shall I make a living? What shall I do? We are coming, we are scattered around in Transylvania, but I decided I have to make a life for myself. I'll try to go to Bucharest, to the main, to the capital of Romania. There is an orphanage home. I'll enlist, and maybe I'll get the Aliyah to go to Palestine. I had this wish of a homeland for Jewish people. I dreamed about it. So I go to that orphanage home. I wound up being there 3 months, and I couldn't get, it was a quota, per quota, so I wasn't fortunate enough. So I go back to Transylvania and enlist myself in the organization. And I get there, I'm the first one. They put me in a cattle train, illegal, and where each city is picked up one child, all survivors, and we are heading to Bulgaria. 15,000 children survivors. There were 2 boats, Pan York and Pan Christian. They split us in both boats. The boats, you should know from them. They had to be repaired because we wouldn't last. The Bulgarian people were exceptionally good. They welcomed us with food and clothing. Unbelievable. We experienced something, humanity. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know who they are really. I mean, we were illiterate, don't forget. We lost our education, our youth. We grew up very fast because we had to. We were observant in every part. I looked around if there was the Nazi threatening me or something. I was always aware what's around me. And I prayed, you know, somebody asked me from a school, did you have hope? First of all, I didn't know at 8 what hope means. Secondly, how can I have hope if hundreds are dying in one day? Children among them mostly. How can I have hope? But I got the hope when I headed from Bulgaria on that boat. And I was hoping, finally we're going to have a Jewish state, a homeland for the Jewish people. And 2,000 years we yearned from that. We reached the Mediterranean, and all of a sudden undersea boats, English mandate, is escorting us to an island, Cyprus Island. What's that? We thought we were going to come under the worst condition. 1 cup of water from cleaning your teeth, but I didn't have brush anyhow, so it didn't matter, and drink water. 135 degrees heat, and the English were very unpleasant to us. After going through hell, I still had to go through this Cyprus Island and lose my hope. Where is justice? Well, anyhow, I was there close to a year. And there they formed the Haganah, the young men, the Jewish. Haganah is the, I would say, pre-soldier sort of, you know. They trained there, the English didn't even see, they made a tunnel, trained there, and then when we came per quota from Cyprus, a few children in a boat We had them taken by the hands so nobody should see them. They walked small like that, and they came there to fight. As soon as they came off the boat, straight to fight. And we were sent to schools, various schools. I actually went to the Haganah. I was in the early teens. And they said to me, "You're young, what are you doing here? You're a kid, you're going to come to Palestine, we're going to have a homeland, and you're going to go to school." I wouldn't budge. First of all, I had food there. They had better food, because the English were rationing the food, and it was insufficient. So I had food. I tried to survive whatever I can. That's one thing. I wasn't that very well versed. All of a sudden, I walked to the gate in Cyprus, and I see a Greek Orthodox priest. And I walk over to him, and he said, "You speak Latin?" And being that I command the language Romanian, and Latin is involved in French, I understood what he's saying. And he takes out an orange, I put it in the bosom, I walk away on the side and I eat it all up. So selfish, I can't even figure it out. How could I be like that? Not to share with the other children. I don't know what happened to me at that moment. I was so overwhelmed. He gives me an orange. A priest gives me an orange. I couldn't believe it. My mind was going crazy. I ate it such an appetite. And then he said to me, "That means Monday in Romanian. That means tomorrow." If he said that, I'll be there. The children started to ask me, "Where are you going?" I said, I'm just lonely, I'm just depressed. I'm going for a walk. They didn't follow me, to my surprise. But I convinced them that I'm going for a walk. I got there, and that priest is waiting with the orange. And day after day after day being in Cyprus, he fed me with the orange. I wrote a book about him. He's not alive anymore, but oh my God, how I appreciated him. I still have tears when I think about him. What a human being. What a human being. You could be good if you want to. Why be so mad, so bitter, killing other people? Why? That question will never go away from me till the moment I'll die. I can't answer the question. I have nobody to answer my question. It's still in my mind. We lost 30 people from my family. Some in Auschwitz, some just died from hunger and diseases. What can I tell you? There are so many stories to tell from this journey that nobody will understand. Well, now comes a little good part. Finally, I get the chance to go to Palestine. There is a turmoil in Palestine too. Arabs, English are leaving the country, fighting with the Arabs, the Jewish are fighting. And us, the children, they throw in bunkers because they cannot transport us since there is war going on, shootings going on. Finally, I lived to see and hear the UN and President Truman, you should rest in peace. I will never forget that moment when I'm right there in Tel Aviv, when Ben Gurion tells us, we got a Jewish state, we got a homeland for you children, and we danced and we cried. I can't describe you the happiness. Finally, my dream came true, and many other Jewish people. So, after that we were sent to various schools. I was fortunate enough to be sent to agricultural school by Henrietta Sold. I was there 2 years, but we were mostly in bunkers because the war still went on. We used to run down from the building in the bunkers in the pajamas and nightgowns, whatever, and started there. After 2 years, I finished the school. Where should I go? My family was left behind by the communists, and they wouldn't let them out from Romania. even though I did whatever I could with the consul, the Romanian, only 6 years later did they come. And here I'm all alone. Where should I go? I went to a hostel home. I begged them to give me a place to sleep on the floor. One happily gave me a blanket. I went to wash floors by people, clean windows, you name it. I made a few pounds, and I paid for my space there to sleep. It was very hard and lonely. And then I wanted to go to the army, but yet I'm too young. I'm not 17 and a half yet. I waited for the moment. When I was 17 and a half, I enlisted in the army. And I was 2 years with the Air Force, studying the parts from the airplanes, giving out the parts to the pilots. I must tell you, I was thrilled because, first of all, I was very proud to serve my people, my homeland, the state of Israel. I was very proud, and I looked good in the uniform. And honestly, I'll show you a picture.
She said she looks good in the uniform.
I had again a home. I was secure 2 years with a home. I had a bed. And I had fun too, believe me. Oh yeah. Without hardship, I had fun. I was young, I had fun. I started to live finally. I didn't know what life means. Okay, came out from the army. They wanted me to go on with the army, but I said, enough. Uniforms here, uniforms there, enough. Orphanage home, you name it. I want to be in civilian clothes already, enough. So I got a job in income tax. And I worked partially as an interpreter for 4 years. There comes this gentleman and sees me on the street. He looks like a tourist. And he goes, this is the young lady I'm going to marry. And I'm like, there's something wrong with her. I mean, what the heck? I have so many officers from the army and all that. I'm dating her. But what meant is meant, just to prove you something. Destiny, I believe in destiny. I worked in income tax for his cousin, a lawyer. I didn't know he comes the following day and he got very handsome. Her father is so handsome. Extremely handsome. So I see he's handsome, but I had father, I don't want to leave the country. I mean, I was a gypsy all my life, you know. So all of a sudden I see this guy walking in. I said, what is he doing here? Oh my God, I see him yesterday on the street. He almost proposed to me. So this lawyer, my boss, said to me, meet Hannah. He said, Hannah? I didn't know her name, but I'll tell you, I met her, all right? I seen her yesterday, and I said, I want to marry her. I said, what the heck? And he tries to talk me into this lawyer, the cousin of this. I said, leave me alone. I want to taste my lifestyle. What am I, so fanatic, religious humanity at 17, 18? I still want to live. Finally, a war broke out. Sinai Peninsula broke out, and they called me back to the reserve army. I went out with him a couple of times. He was good looking, right? I went out, I had fun for a week, and then, he proposed, all right? But I said, no. You see, I'm through. Yes, they did come from the army with the jeep. They told me, take the uniform, and we are going, we're leaving, the war is brewing. So I told them, you go back. Your luck as an American, mister, I called him mister. Yeah. Go back to America. I don't know, I might be killed tomorrow. And he did go back with the last airplane via Paris. And he started to correspond with me. But I really wasn't that interested because I figured he goes there, let him find a girl there, I'll find my mate here in Israel. But what was meant, just to prove you, he started to send packages, which came very handy because it was very that time in Israel in those days, at the beginning of the creation of the land. Very, very hard. So he corresponds, and he sends a cable. 8 months the American citizen was allowed to come to Israel due to the war. After 8 months, he sends a cable, I'm coming to marry you. I take my valise and I go to another city, Tel Aviv. I don't want to get married, but my family is over my head. No. Listen, wars are going on here and all that. Save your life. Go, marry him. I barely know the man. All right, he comes. They push me back from Tel Aviv in my valise. I come back, and 30 people were at my kippah. One baked a cake and one brought soda because there wasn't too much. They borrowed a beautiful gown for me. That was more than the whole wedding. And I got married. I came to the States, but to be honest, my life started to haunt me, my past. I was lonely. I didn't command the English language well. And it was very tough on me. I was about to go back. But then I had a child, and I got acquainted with American women. I was already commanding the language, and I started to settle down. But unfortunately, he didn't live too long. He died at 50. And I was left with 2 young men,
57.
teenagers. But they helped me. He was struggling to make a living. I lived in the Bronx in New York. On a top floor, I had no furniture. People gave me here and there something. But they offered me help. I refused. I was much too independent, the pride carried me through all my life, and I refused. I wouldn't accept help. We'll do it on our own, my 2 sons and myself. They cleaned windows. They shoveled snows. And every penny was saved. I went on flea markets. I worked in supermarkets, you name it. I was uneducated. That's why I preach for you. Please get your education. It is so important. Only God knows. I had to work in freezers, grind meat, to provide a living for my children. It was very, very hard. But I'm so proud to tell you that my 2 sons were self-made men. They got the highest education. I'm so proud of my grandchildren. I have 5 grandchildren. Columbia graduate, a couple. One of my sons is a Columbia graduate in law. My older son, the FBI agent, then Queens College, a master's in political science, High School of Science, and he's involved in the community. Both of my children are involved in the state of Israel and in the community itself, but we live in New York. I thank God for every moment. I went through hell. I didn't tell all of it.